The Walking Dead Rewrite, Season 8, Episode 6, Hunter. Now this episode would begin and you would have Carl, and he is outside of the hilltop and he is watching the herd from the distance. He's eating some food and then he packs up his bag and keeps moving. As we cut to Lydia, and we have her that is forced by Alpha to tell them about the hilltop and what she saw there. They have mostly farmland, and she doesn't really tell her all that much stuff. And Alpha is pissed, and it's like, wait, is that the only reason you came to get me? And she says it's a stupid question. And they keep moving as we cut to the intro. Now, after the intro, you would have Alexandra, and you would have the council that is talking in the church, as you have everybody that is gathering for a big group meeting, and you have Rick that talks about what the hell they did, how Negan got out while the skins were now a problem for them. Aaron died and Negan got out, and it's like, I can't do my job if the council is keeping things from me. And I would have Rick say this, because the difference between Rick and Michonne, Rick in this version, obviously being the head of the council, is obviously sitting there and he's like, okay, we have now just lost one of the biggest members of the council. We lost a big member of Alexandria because of these people, and they could be right outside of our community. And that's what he would say. They could be right outside there today, and we're sitting in here and we can't even take responsibility for the actions that we're doing in here. And he would be pissed because Gabriel did not do his job like he was supposed to do, because he was too worried about what was going on with Rosita and all of that stuff. And Rick says that they're lucky that they even found Negan in the first place. And obviously this would be something where then Rick is like, okay, the fair starts tomorrow. Like, the fair literally starts tomorrow, and we are not prepared. We're not prepared, but you know what? We're going. We are damn well going, because we need to bring the communities back together. And Rick, especially after the death of Aaron, unlike Michonne, this is the difference between Rick and Michonne. Rick, in this version, being the head of the council, would say, man, look, Aaron lost his life. If anything, that is a way bigger reason than any other possible reason why tomorrow we are making that trip to the fair, and we are bringing the communities back together, and we're all uniting together as one and facing whatever these people are. Because with the death of Aaron, Rick knows tomorrow we're bringing those communities back together, and we're going to stay together. And that is what he is telling the council. Now, as Rick walks out, he talks with Sasha, and he talks with Sasha as we get to see her, and she asks, like, how'd the trip back home go? And Rick says, shitty. How's it been here? And Sasha says, no, not good. Everybody was wondering about Negan. We finally got him back, but I can't really say there's good news that comes out of all this bad news. And Rick says, we spend all this time in this community all worrying about what we're going to eat today and what we're going to do. And next thing you know, I guess we completely forgot about the kind of threats that live outside. And Sasha says, yeah, it kind of reminds me of old times. And Rick says, yeah, in the worst way possible. And then Rick says, look, I don't like to ask you for too much. And Sasha says, no, go ahead. And Rick says, all right, I would really, really appreciate if maybe you took shifts up on the guard tower today. I want to make sure that whatever's out there is nowhere near this place. And if the skins are anywhere near this place, I want you to let me know. You are going to defend this place. I know that's a lot of pressure, and Sasha would say, no, I've handled worse. And Rick says, I know you have. I know you can do this. And then they go their separate ways, but we get to see that Sasha, just like old times, is going to be in the tower, making sure that no Whispers are around. Now, as we have Alpha and Lydia and the Whispers that kind of stop and take a breather on their way to their camp, we see everybody kind of chilling. You have, Lydia with the yo-yo, and we have Carl, who is now coming upon the Whispers. As he starts to kind of approach them, you see two of them, and one of them says, drop the weapon, kid. And Carl takes out his knife and trips the Whisper down on the ground. And then, right behind him, as we reveal, Beta. He grabs Carl. As Carl tries to take a swing at him, he throws the knife out of his hand, takes Carl and drags him up the little hill and throws him to the ground as Beta reveals Carl to Alpha and Lydia. And he says, been tracking him since the Clayton. And she's like, just him? And Beta's like, just him. And she's like, thank you, Beta. And she's like, who are you? And then Carl, of course, admits that he came for Lydia. And of course, Lydia cannot act desperate, so she says, you are so stupid. And the same thing, she would punch him in the face, and then, you know, obviously Alpha would be very suspicious of this, and she would say, he's coming with us. When there's one, there's more. And she says, we're taking this guy with us. And then she pushes Lydia ahead as they all march with the dead. And Carl is now back with Lydia, but Alpha is clearly on to Carl. Now, outside the walls, you have Daryl and you have Jesus, and they are out there and they kill some of the dead. As you see, the same little hill as Carl was just taken from. And you can clearly tell that Jesus and Daryl are catching up to Carl rather quickly. And then I would also have the same thing. You would have Jesus and, of course, Daryl. Daryl shoots the one arrow and kills the one walker. And then Dog gets the arrow for him, brings it back, and, kind of gives it back to Daryl. And Daryl's just like, oh, bad dog, as you see the arrow rip. I think it's a funny little scene, and I think it's really funny for Daryl because it wasn't even scripted. And if you guys didn't know that, that actually is a behind the scenes thing that they did say, is that behind the scenes that actually just happened, and Norman Reedus kind of just went with it. So I definitely like those little moments, and I would never delete that. I think that's really, really funny. And then you would get to see, as the episode continues and as you see them kind of getting closer to the herd, you have the characters that make it to Alpha's camp. And you see they, of course, she's like talking to Beta, and she's like, get Lydia a new skin, and then, take, Carl with you and stuff like that. Take the boy with you. And obviously they have Carl prisoner, and we see the Whisper camp for the very first time. And it's just so animalistic. As, Alpha always says, it's very animalistic. They've got skins hanging. They've got them. They're all sitting there. They've got like mud on their faces. It's a very, animalistic way to live. And I think that's the most unique thing about the Whisper camp. And I think the show did it very, very well. And honestly, I would not really change anything here. I think the way they executed it in the show was really, really good. Now, another storyline that we also would not change in this episode is we get to see in this one two characters that are obviously, willing to betray Alpha. And obviously you would have kind of the big group gathering, as we get to see obviously Alpha has no choice but to, put them to the test. And the one guy challenges Alpha, and obviously Beta gets involved. And then she's like, yeah, I saw you. You're the one that was plotting with your boyfriend. And it's kind of like, no, I wasn't. Oh, yes, you were. And I think the way Samantha Morton does this here is so good. As, she's like, you failed all of us. And Alpha looks back at her people, and she's like, have I failed you? As you see Carl watching Alpha do this from a distance and looking very, very kind of nervous now, and kind of almost second guessing what he has just been doing over the last episode, and maybe he shouldn't have come here. That's the kind of look that he has on his face. And she's like, they all follow me by choice, because I keep them alive. Me. And obviously she's like, I don't want to fight you. And she's like, too late. As she cuts her head off and hands it to her frickin' boyfriend. One of the best scenes in the Whisper arc, honestly. I love the way it happens, the way that they challenge Alpha. And I'm sure you guys are going to ask, well, Dan, are you going to add anything here? No, I'm actually not. I think the way that this goes is so good, as she stabs this guy in the belly and she teaches him a lesson. Back at Alexandria, you would have Morgan, who is training with his new axe, and this would be a moment that we would notice. And as Rick walks up to Morgan and he's training, and Rick says, he's like, just spoke to the council. We're heading to the fair tomorrow. And Morgan says, that's good. And he's still kind of like just training with his axe and stuff like that. And Rick says, like, look, you've done a lot for this place. And he's like, I can't help but notice. You took half the axe and half of your staff. You blended it together. Why? And Morgan says, it's best not to forget. And I don't want to forget. Not ever. And Rick says, look, you defended this place. You saved this place from the hell that was outside. And that was years ago. I'm very grateful for what you did, Morgan. Don't ever forget it. and Rick would walk away as Morgan keeps training. Now, the story with Alpha, and as she takes her mask off and she talks with Beta, and the story about Lydia and when she was 3 and how, she kind of just watched all this happen as, this stuff like went in her mouth and stuff. And, she just watched, and then she hit, Lydia against her head and this and that. Like, that whole story, I would absolutely keep. I think it's dark, but for a villain line, I think it's very, very good. As even Beta looks kind of like, holy frig. And when Beta looks like that, there's a problem. And then he asks about Carl and what are we going to do with him? And Alpha says, well, put it this way, if Lydia doesn't kill him, then we have our answer about how important he really is. And, Beta be like, I'll prepare the boy. And Alpha's like, yeah, get them ready. We'll do this tonight. And obviously, it's kind of just a matter of time before Carl gets killed. Now, back at Alexandria, you would also have Gabriel and you would have Rosita. And he'd be like, well, I'm part of a council that's no longer a council anymore. So there is that. And, Rosita would just be like, look, the fair starts tomorrow. We should probably get a good night's sleep tonight. And, Gabriel's just like, I don't know if I'm going. And Rosita says, look, Rick wants to bring everybody back together. Look, I know he still blames you. Rick's upset. He's healing. He'll come around. Don't worry. And Gabriel says, no, I screwed up and I have to pay the consequences. And, Rosita's just like, no, this whole thing, it's not on you. Look, you were worried about me. And, Gabriel's just like, and Gabriel would kind of get emotional. He would say, if anything happened to you, I don't know what I would do. And Rosita would say, look, I'm here. I'm still here. And Gabriel would be like, I know. It's just a lot. Aaron was like a brother to me. And Rosita would say, I know. And you would have Gabriel and Rosita that hug. And Gabriel is just kind of all stressed out and overwhelmed. And Rosita is there to comfort him. Now, as we see the Whispers and they're dumping off the dead bodies, obviously from the couple that they killed earlier, they're dumping it off. And as we see a herd, we see Daryl and Jesus are right frickin' there. And they're almost at the Whisper camp. Now, as we see nighttime, you would have obviously the same thing. Beta would be holding Carl hostage, and you would see Lydia as she starts to cry, and Alpha says, okay, kill the boy. And she's like, you were gone. You were gone for a long time. Maybe it was long enough. And, Lydia is all crying, and she's like, long enough for what? And she's like, to forget which side you're on. And she's like, don't be weak like your father. You know what happened to him. And it's like, wow, Alpha just really doesn't care. And she's like, yeah, I know what happened to him, mother. And she's like, kill him or he'll kill you both. And she picks up the knife, and as she's about to do it, same thing would happen. You get the walkers that come into the camp and flood it. And I love the way how the Whispers wake up, put their masks on, and it's just all, yep, there you go. They blend in. Love that. As you see hell break loose, and as you see, just like in the Walking Dead TV show, you would have Daryl and Jesus with Whisper masks on as he says, keep your head down. We're leaving. And, Daryl's like, no, the girl stays. And Carl says, well, so do I. And when Daryl hears this, he's like, damn it. And as you see Daryl, Jesus, and Carl get out of there, Carl takes Lydia, and now Lydia is coming with Daryl, Jesus, and Carl, and they've got her out. Now, after a commercial break and after the attack, you would have one of the Whispers that's dying, and it would be the same thing. I'm going to be one of them. And Beta would be like, but you will always be one of us. And then Beta is sent out to come after Lydia because obviously he's got to bring Lydia back, because when Alpha finds out she's gone, oh, that is not going to be good. So obviously Beta has a job now to get Lydia back from the group. So now it's a hunt or be hunted type of situation. And you've got him that says, like, gather up some of them, and, eventually they're all going to walk with the Guardians and this and that. And he is now going to go after Daryl. Now, as we see Daryl in the woods, and, they're kind of arguing about what direction they would go in. And, he'd be like, there's no way in hell I'm going to let you run away with this one. And, obviously it was Henry in the previous version. And in this version, Daryl would say to Carl, think of your dad. What do you think he'd be thinking of you being out here right now? Huh? And, Carl would be like, look, it's not any of your business. I didn't ask you to come after me. And, Daryl would say, yeah, and I didn't ask you to run away like a total idiot. And he would call him that. And Daryl would say, yeah, I just said that. And Carl would say, this is bullshit. They fucking raped her. Do you understand me? And Daryl would say, no, I don't. And Daryl would say, All I see is you doing something stupid and almost getting yourself killed over someone you just met 2 days ago. And Carl would say, you don't get it. And you know what? Out of all people, I thought you'd be the one that would understand. And Daryl would say, we're going back this way. And, Jesus would actually start to agree with Carl, and he'd be like, you know what, Daryl, I don't know. I don't feel right about, sending her back to that. And Daryl is voted out as of course, two of them say, keep Lydia with them. And then Daryl has no choice but to listen to Jesus and Carl as they vote, and they say Lydia stays with them. So as we cut to them in the daytime and they're trying to find shelter away from the whispers, they find the apartment building, and he would ask, like, Beta, is he their best? And Lydia would kind of nod, and he'd be like, good, we'll kill him first. Now, as you see them move in, it would be just like the TV show. You kind of have a few quiet scenes after that. Obviously, you kind of got to balance out the episode a little bit. You would see them kind of talking, kind of preparing, making a little bit of a plan, and you would see them kind of getting ready. And, Daryl would even say to Jesus in a scene, he'd be like, man, I'm glad you're here. I don't know if I could deal with these two, like just these two on their own, And it would kind of be a scene where they'd be talking, and then you would see, as they're all kind of preparing, Beta has arrived, and I would easily have it to where they see him. However, the difference is in this scene, I would have it to where Jesus is the one that is looking at Beta from up high down at the herd, and Jesus is staring down at Beta, and it'd be like, oh man, Jesus, especially after the death of Aaron, he wants frickin' blood, and you can clearly see that in this face-off. So as Beta and them move in, you would also have, of course, them going up the stairs, and, Daryl would be like, Lydia, you're staying in the closet. He's like, you'll just get in the way. Dog, he'll kill anybody if they get through. And it's kind of like this intense scene as Lydia gets locked in the closet. And then Daryl and Carl would be ready. They'd be getting prepared, and they'd be getting ready to kill the Whispers. As you see them making their way through, they would kill a few, and as well as in the TV show, like Henry with, of course, what happened to his leg, you would also see Carl that would get kind of scraped on the leg and stuff like that, and he'd be bleeding as Lydia makes it back to him, and he's like, I hate this, and as you see Jesus is going through, he slits one of the Whispers' throat, and they're about done killing a lot of the Whispers that came through. And then as you have a moment of silence and you're kind of waiting for something, and you can kind of tell something's about to happen, you have Jesus that's preparing, and then Beta comes through the frickin' wall. And in this version, he comes after Jesus, and he would pick him up and throw him against the wall. Then Jesus, of course, starts using some of his ninja skills and kicks Beta. It's a pretty even fight as they are both starting to fight. And then Beta swings at Jesus with some of his knives. Jesus is, of course, ducking, and he kicks him a few times. I think this fight would be a lot more even as you see Jesus is kicking the crap out of Beta. Beta, of course, then slams him against the saw, just like with Daryl. And Jesus would, of course, headbutt him, and it would come back. Then Jesus kicks Beta down on the ground one more time. They'd be fighting, and then you would have Jesus that would bust through the wall like an absolute ninja. And just like Daryl, he would hide underneath the flooring so Beta can't see him. As he says, you and your people are nothing to me. Your world is already dead. All I want is the girl. As we hear the footsteps and as we see Jesus knocks Beta down an elevator shaft, and Jesus would spit blood out just like Daryl, except unlike typical Walking Dead giving Daryl all the badass moments all the time, Jesus would do this out of anger for what happened to Aaron, and, well, just because Jesus is a freaking badass character and he knows how to fight, and it's definitely going to be put to use. Now, back at Alexandria, you would have Rick, and you would have Morgan, you would have, of course, Gabriel, Rosita, and a bunch of the others that are all going to Kingdom for the fair now that it is the next day. And as they leave Alexandria, you would get to see everybody is, leaving, everybody is getting out of there, and you kind of see that as it's kind of a nice scene as Rick and the rest are on their way to the fair. And on their way to the fair, I would also have, just like in the TV show, Rick and them that would stop, and they would see Daryl, they would see Jesus, and they would see Carl, and Rick and Carl would hug, and then they would ask who the hell Lydia is. And Daryl would say, it's a long story. And you would see Judith that would be saying, anybody heading to Kingdom? And you would have Daryl that's like all happy and stuff. And he and everybody else, of course, Carl, they all get in the back of the horses and wagons. As you see, they ride into Kingdom. And as it's a nice moment, and as they ride into Kingdom and everything is going super, super well for them, then you see, unlike the TV show, Beta would be walking out of the woods and he would spot them heading into Kingdom, and he's been tracking them. And Beta, his mouth is covered in blood. He looks angry and he looks absolutely just bloodthirsty. As you see, his face is all messed up. He's covered in blood, and he looks at this and he pulls out his knife as he watches the Kingdom gates open, and Beta looks like he's about to raise some hell. So that was The Walking Dead, Season 8, Episode 6, Hunter. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. We saw Jesus versus Beta. In revenge for Aaron, he kicked the absolute crap out of Beta. However, he did not finish the job, so we'll have to see if anybody else can at some point. We will have to keep watching and see. But as we see, Rick and the characters are now on their way to the fair. We get to see they're all coming back together. Obviously, all we need now is just Maggie's group to show up, and obviously that'll continue into next episode. But the characters are all going to Kingdom for the fair, just like in the TV show. And Beta, obviously, after something like this, is going to report back to Alpha, and we're going to have to see what he tells her and what this whole situation at the fair is going to be. But as things start to build up, and as we get ready for our final 2 episodes of The Walking Dead rewrites for this year, stay tuned, because coming up next week is The Walking Dead Season 8, Episode 7, The Calm Before. Thanks for watching.
Everybody enter.